Welcome back to the making of the handcraft coat. Today I'm joined by Terry, my assistant, who's going to help us with this try-on. So Terry is wearing the pocket baste. This coat is actually cut for myself and not cut for Terry, but the reason why we're fitting it on Terry is so that you'll get to see more fitting issues. So the first thing you want to do in any fitting is obviously place the coat on your customer, but make sure that it is sitting on them properly. It's not caught up at the back, that it's sitting well on the chest and is hanging correctly. The next thing you want to do is to fasten the front of it. For this you want to take the left side over the right side and then fasten it at the button with a pin or needle. Next you want to mark the overlap, which is where the front edge crosses over, and then the top button there like so. We then take out the pin and look at the front edge. Now we're expecting to find an overlap of 1.5 inches. The button stance is 3/4 of an inch on both sides. 3/4 by 2 is 1.5 inches, giving you your total coverage here. So this one here appears to be more than 1.5 inches. It's probably about 2 inches. So that would tell me that we need to reduce down the front edge. So we take 1.5 inches away from 2 inches, we get 1/2 inch. And to bring this down 1/2 inch, we take 1/4 off each side, and that will reduce down our front edge. So that's a pretty simple way of taking in a coat. Just right at the front edge there. The next thing we're going to look at is the sleeve here. So how long do you want a sleeve on a garment on a person? Rather than going off the shirt sleeve, because shirt sleeves are often different lengths depending on how often they're laundered, we go by the bone, or the bone of the wrist here, the wrist bone, and we want to line up the cuff of our jacket with the wrist bone, and then having the shirt coming down 3/8, 1/2 inch below that. So the best way of doing this is to locate his wrist bone, pinch his forearm, and then measure from the end of the thumb up to your finger, and that'll give you the length of the cuff from the edge of the thumb. You can transfer that line over to the other sleeve, so you ensure you'll get the two sleeves lengths the same despite the shoulders. So this won't be affected by the shoulders at all because we're measuring here locally. The next thing I think is quite obvious here with Terry is the length of the coat. I would have this coat no longer than his second knuckle on his thumb. If I was going for a shorter style, I'd probably raise that up to be in line with or slightly below his the second knuckle on the first knuckle on his thumb there. Just making it a slightly shorter style. The other thing I think jumps out at me with this coat is the fullness in the chest here. It looks very big here for Terry. It sort of makes him look older, I think, rather than trying to make the guy look younger or slimmer. Now this shape is something that is coveted by designers and fitters out there, that they want to see a nice full chest. This to me is too full. I mark taking in the chest by taking the chest through the underarm cut, so I'm going to mark it at the underarm cut, and then I also mark at the front of the armhole here, that I know that I'm going to be taking in the chest here. So in this case we could take anywhere between 1/2 inch to 1 inch depending on how clean you want the front chest. If I was taking this, because I'm taking it in the chest, obviously the next thing I'm going to look at is my point to point, is my shoulder width. On Terry, I'd say it's probably a little bit wide. I take it in about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch in total, making the shoulders a little narrower. Talking about the shoulders, the one thing I would note about Terry is he's quite sloping in shoulder, whereas I'm quite high in shoulder. So I would expect to find that it's quite loose here at the shoulder, which it is. The shoulder pad really isn't sitting on the shoulder as we would like, and there's slight breaking at the back of the armhole here. So what we want to do in the back there is pick it up about 1/2 inch through the back, and same through the front as well, and that will bring the shoulder back down onto the shoulder bone. Other points to note here, if we turn Terry to the back, is that you can sort of see creases coming through the back. He'd be slightly low. He's got a slightly prominent blade up here, which is obviously affecting the hang on the back here. We also need to pick up the shoulder point here on this side, just like we did that side, because for the same same reasons, both sloping shoulder to clean it up through there. We'd also possibly have to take a small amount of back balance out. I'm slightly more head forward than Terry is. As a result of that, the length from the centre back neck to the chest line is longer on this fitting than Terry requires. So some people like to pin out the back balance between the two sleeve points, sleeve pitches, or you can take it out of the back waist. The next thing I want to look at is this crease through here, the shaping through under the arm. If that appears to be creased up, like something kind of like that, you see that sort of creasing, that's the armhole is too high and it's actually pushing it down and creating a crease through there. So in a case like that, you put a pin in under the arm there like that, telling you need to drop the armhole. I asked Terry just to adopt an erect posture. You'd see how it becomes a lot more obvious here. It becomes even more, there's even more balance in there. Balance is the distance from the centre back neck to the chest line. So first of all, you can see that obviously we've got a lot more length than we require going through the waist, but we also have more length going through. The reason for this is whenever you close your shoulder blades, when you stand up erect, you're pushing your shoulder blades together, which is making the distance shorter through the back. You can pin it out of the centre back seam, but you would, if you're not taking it in a consistent amount all the way through, you'd be narrowing through the top here. Because Terry has wide hips, I'd be taking it off the side here and here, and I'd probably be letting the hips out. So it's not always advisable. People tend to go straight to pin in the back seam. That's not really how to do it. We usually take it off the sides here and here. So I'm going to take it all the way through to the waist. So you can relax again, Terry. So those are sort of characteristics of a erect figure. Oftentimes as well, you'd have to release the centre back here. Whenever the person becomes more erect, they leave less suppression through the centre back seam. So in this one here, you can sort of see there's a slight tightness there. People might confuse that with, well, it's catching on the shoulder blade up here, or we're already shortening the back balance, we're already creasing the shoulder angles. So noticing a tightness here would be difficult. I can see it there, but I'm also looking out for it because I know, because of Terry's posture, this would be over suppressed for him. But that's just another point to note, that oftentimes we can see issues and they look like other issues as well. Like a tightness often looks like squaring of the shoulders, but we kind of are already, because we're decreasing the back balance. If we have Terry just adopt a stooping posture for me, please. So a stooping posture, what happens is the head rolls forward. As the head rolls forward, the back opens up, and we can actually see here that this looks like very tight through here. It would mean we need more width through. So if Terry's a stooping posture, I'd be letting this out here and here. The other thing you'll notice is you actually get this fluting through the back vent, and I often notice this being repaired in both imagery on social media and also tailoring shops, is people pinning it here like this and what they do then is they narrow down the back here to get rid of that fluting. That's actually not the issue. You're essentially scratching it where it itches. The problem is up here. It's become a shortened back balance. The distance from the centre back neck to the chest then increases as the person stoops over. So we need that length there. If you're trying to assess how much length you need, you take the coat and you lift it off the shoulders and let it sit in at the back. And there we can see that, down here it's sitting fine, but now our collar has been pulled off our neck. We measure from the top of the collar to where the collar meets the shirt. We have the distance that is required. It is not just length that's required, shape is also needed as well. This is very well explained in my book, Pattern Drafting for Bespoke Menswear, when we talk about lengthening back balances. You want to turn to the front for me, Terry? Just keep your stooping posture. The other thing that happens to the front here is that the front balance becomes too long. So whenever we get a stooping posture, invariably we get a shorter front balance. We can tell the front balance is too long when we look at the hem, and we can see the hem is angling down. When you want to decrease front balance, you do that all the way through the shoulder. So you drop the shoulder point down and the neck point down. redraw your shoulder seam, and you're picking your forepart up. Generally, whatever you're adding into your back, so if you're adding an inch to the back, you're usually taking about an inch out of the front of it. Those two go hand in hand. Where you're giving the one, you're taking from the other. Adopt erect posture for me, please. Erect posture, we can see we have the opposite problem. The front of it actually becomes too short. In this case, we want to lengthen the front balance, and that's by using the inlay through our shoulder and advancing up the neck point and advancing up the shoulder point, giving us more length going over, which would cause the front of it to drop down. We do not just lengthen it from the front. We must do it between the neck point and the chest line, because that's your front balance. It's not a front length. The balance is from the neck point to the chest line. The other thing we'd also find is we need to give it more length on the front. As you open up your chest, the coat tends to lift off, so we'd end up crookening this and to give more length on the front, improve the overall fit of the garment. So those are the main points that I wanted to cover on the figuration and the fitting of the coat. The last thing we need to do before we let the client out of the garment is to match or to mark the pitch of the sleeve, and that's done by holding the arm against the jacket and marking to where the arm cuts the pocket on both sides. The sleeve cuts the pocket there. That is the pitch of your sleeve. So whenever you're actually making up the garment, that's where you'll be pitching your sleeve to, rather than going by the mark stitches underneath. Thank you for watching. That was the fitting of the coat.